Maddie's feet will be shoulder width apart, the bar level to her sternum, and her head looking straight ahead. When she squats, she wants to keep her knees over her feet but not past her toes. The barbell will be on her shoulders with her hands spread evenly along the bar. On the concentric phase, this is when she is lifting and exhaling. Her hip joint will be going through extension. The primary muscle mover is her quads. Her knee joint will be going through extension, and the primary muscle mover is her gluteus maximus. On the eccentric phase, this is when she is lowering and inhaling. Her hip joint will be going through flexion, and the primary muscle mover is the quads. And her knee joints will be going through flexion, and the primary muscle mover is the gluteus maximus.
For Olivia's front squat, her feet should be shoulder width apart. The bar should begin at her sternum. She should be looking straight ahead. Her knees over her feet but not past her toes. Her arms should be crossed in front of her with her shoulders in flexion at a 90-degree angle. During the concentric phase, her hips and knee joints should be in extension. Her quadriceps and her gluteus maximus will be the primary muscle movers, and she will be exhaling. During the lowering phase, which is eccentric, her hips and knees should be in flexion. Her quadriceps and her gluteus maximus will be still the primary muscle movers, although she will be inhaling. For Olivia's box squat, she will begin seated on the bench. Her feet shoulder width apart. The barbell will be placed on her shoulders with the desired weight. Her knees, shin, and feet should be at a 90-degree angle, and she will be looking straight ahead. Her spine neutral with no flexion or hyperextension. For the concentric phase, her hips and knee joints will be in extension. Her quadriceps and her gluteus maximus will be the primary muscle movers, and she will be exhaling. During the lowering phase, which is eccentric, her hips and knees will now change to flexion. Her quadriceps and her gluteus maximus will still be the primary muscle movers, although she will be inhaling.
For the split squat, Maddie's feet will be shoulder width apart. She's going to step her left leg back far enough so that her heel is not on the ground and that her knees do not go over her right toes. The barbell will be on her shoulders, and she wants to keep her spine neutral and her head looking straight ahead. On the concentric phase, her right leg is going through the lifting motion. Her knee and hip joint are both going through the extension action. The primary muscle mover for the knee is the quads, and the primary muscle mover for the hip is the gluteus maximus. For her left leg, her knee is going through extension, and the primary muscle mover is the quads. The lifting phase is when she will be exhaling. On the eccentric phase, this is when she is lowering and inhaling. Her right leg, the knee and hip joints will be going through flexion. The primary muscle mover for the knees is the quads, and the primary muscle mover for the hip is the gluteus maximus. Her left leg will be going through knee flexion, and the primary muscle mover is the quad.
Olivia will begin feet hip distance width apart. The barbell will be directly in front of her shins with the desired weight on. Her knees will be flexed when reaching for the bar. Her spine will also be neutral. Her hands should be shoulder width apart, and there are two variations of holding the bar. One is with one hand supination position and one in pronation, or both in pronated version. She should be looking forward. During her lifting phase, which is the concentric phase, her hips and knees will be in extension. The primary muscle movers are her glute max and her quadriceps. During this time, she will be exhaling. When lowering, which is eccentric, her hips and knees will be in flexion. The primary muscle movers will be the same, but she will be inhaling. As Olivia sets up for her RDL, her feet should be hip distance width apart. The barbell should be directly in front of her, although when doing the exercise, she needs to remember that the barbell will never touch the ground. Her hands should be in pronation position. During the concentric phase, which is the lifting, her hips and knees will be in extension. Her gluteus maximus and her quadriceps will be the primary muscle movers, and she will be exhaling. During the lowering phase, which is eccentric, her hips and knees will be now in flexion. The gluteus maximus and the quadriceps will still be the primary muscle movers. This time she will be inhaling. As Olivia steps into the glute ham raise machine, her feet should be touching the back wall while her shins should be resting upon the rollers. Her knees are in a flexion position while her spine is straight up and neutral with zero flexion and zero extension. During the lifting phase, which is concentric, her knees will be in flexions and the primary muscle mover will be her hamstrings. She will be exhaling. After that, she will be lowering in an eccentric way with her knees going into extension. Her hamstrings are still the primary muscle movers, and she will be inhaling.
For the bent over barbell row, Maddie's feet are going to be shoulder width apart, her spine is going to stay neutral, and she's going to bend to almost a 90-degree angle with her hands on a pronated hand position on the barbell. She's going to have a slight bend in her knees. On the concentric phase, this is when she is lifting and exhaling. Her shoulder joint will be going through extension, and the primary muscle mover is the latissimus dorsi. Her elbow joint will be going through flexion, and the primary muscle mover is the biceps brachii. On the eccentric phase, this is when she is lowering and inhaling. Her shoulder joint will be going through flexion, and the primary muscle mover is the latissimus dorsi. Her elbow joint will be going through extension, and the primary muscle mover is the biceps brachii. For the one-arm row, Maddie will be lifting with her left arm. Her right knee is going to be up on the bench, her spine is going to be neutral, and her head will be in line with her spine. Her left arm is going to be hanging, and she wants to keep her shoulders equal, not dropping one shoulder lower than the other. The concentric phase is the lifting phase when she is exhaling. Her shoulder joint is going through extension, and the primary muscle mover is the latissimus dorsi. Her elbow joint is going through flexion, and the primary muscle mover is her biceps brachii. On the eccentric phase, this is when she is lowering and inhaling. Her shoulder joint is going through flexion, and her primary muscle mover is the latissimus dorsi. Her elbow joint is going through extension, and the primary muscle mover is the biceps brachii.
To begin with Olivia's horizontal rows, she will be laying below the bar with her eyes below the barbell. The bar should be far enough from her arms, but not that her elbows are in hyperextension. And then when lifting the bar, she should be able to extend her arms completely after that. For the lifting phase, which is concentric, her shoulders should be in extension, while her elbows will be in flexion. The two primary muscle movers for this move are the latissimus dorsi and the biceps brachii. She will be exhaling during this concentric move. During the eccentric lowering move, her shoulders will reverse into flexion and her elbows will go into extension. Still the two same primary muscle movers, which are latissimus dorsi and the biceps. During this phase, she will be inhaling.
For the pull-up, Maddie has her hands in a pronated form. She is using a resistance band, which you can use with your choice. You're going to have your hands on a wide grip on the bar above you. You want to keep your spine neutral and your head looking straight ahead. On the concentric phase, this is when you are lifting and exhaling. Your elbow joint is going through flexion, and your primary muscle mover is the biceps brachii. The shoulder joint is going through extension, and the primary muscle mover is the latissimus dorsi. On the concentric phase, when you are lowering and inhaling, your elbow joint is going through extension, the primary muscle mover is the biceps brachii, and your shoulder joint is going through flexion, the primary muscle mover is the latissimus dorsi.
As Olivia sets up for her chin-up, she will be in the position of supination with her hands. She will get into the resistance band with her right knee in first and her left leg below, and she will be looking straight ahead. For the concentric phase, which is lifting, her elbow will be in flexion and her shoulder will be in extension. The primary muscle mover for each are biceps and her latissimus dorsi. During this phase, she will be exhaling. During the lowering phase, which is eccentric, her elbow will be in extension and her shoulder will be in flexion. Still the same primary muscle movers, which are biceps and latissimus dorsi. In this phase, she will be inhaling.
Bench press, Maddie will be laying with her back on the bench and her feet flat on the ground. Her thoracic vertebrae will not be touching the bench. She wants to have the bar above her high enough so that her arms can reach it, but with a slight bend in the elbows, and the bench is going to be directly above her eyesight when she is laying down. She's going to pick the bar up and bring it over across her body, and when she brings it down, it's going to come directly to her nipple line. On the concentric phase, this is when she is lifting and exhaling. Her elbow joint and shoulder joint are going through flexion, and the primary muscle mover is the pectoralis major. For the eccentric phase, this is when she's lowering and inhaling. Her elbow and shoulder joint are going through extension, and the primary muscle mover is the pectoralis major. For the chest flies, Maddie's going to be laying with her back on the bench and her feet flat on the floor. Her thoracic vertebrae will not be touching the bench. She's going to have two dumbbells in either hand that are going to be directly in front of her nipple line straight ahead. She wants to have a slight bend in her elbows when she brings the weight down and when she brings it back up. On the concentric phase, this is when she's lifting and exhaling. Her elbow and shoulder joint are going through horizontal adduction, and the primary muscle mover is the pectoralis major. On the eccentric phase, this is when she's lowering and inhaling. Her elbow and shoulder joint will be going through horizontal abduction, and the primary muscle mover is the pectoralis major.